agenda today. I think I just want to get started in a really timely way. I've been asked to mention our meeting code of conduct before we begin, so let me do that. I just want to remind the commissioners and the staff and the members of the public that the code of conduct includes, after the public record portion of the meeting, be sure to comment on the specific agenda item only, and be sure to address the full body. Public speakers will not engage in conversation with the chair. I didn't even know that. With the chair, commissioners, or staff during the meeting. Everyone here needs to remain courteous and refrain from offensive and abusive language, and I know that there's no one here that would do that, so I think we're good. We may have to ask anyone who repeatedly doesn't comply and which disrupts the meeting to leave the meeting. So that's our general code of conduct. The orders of the day, are there other than
It's just the agenda.
just the agenda? Okay, so everyone's seen the agenda, and I presume everyone's fine with the agenda. Okay, so if that is the case, is there a motion to approve the orders of the day?
I move to approve.
Is there a second? And is there any discussion? With no discussion, those in favor of approving the orders of the day? And it looks like that's 100% in favor. So great. So the motion passes by a vote of 10-0. Our next is the public record. And Anne, do you have anything to share with us about the public records today?
Sure, I can just note that moving forward, so we are still figuring out our process for everything. The minutes for the last meeting, we ran past Karen. They are approved and posted to the website. But if anybody has comments or feedback, please let me know. And moving forward, we are going to wait until the next meeting to approve the minutes. So we'll take a vote on that at future meetings. But if anybody has comments, we can, I can still revise the approved minutes. I'll just have to send it back to Karen for approval.
And so that would be as part of the public record then.
Yes.
So is it possible for us to go ahead and approve?
Yeah.
And go ahead and do that?
Mhm.
So the public record, yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Well, I was just gonna ask, so if, what constitutes a public record and how do we learn about the public records? So is that stuff you send out to us ahead of time or?
Yeah, it would all, basically anything that's on the agenda, we would be providing as an attachment or at least a link in the document ahead of time. So like the meeting minutes would be.
So all of this stuff
there.
that you send out is the public record?
Well, yes, I mean, in this instance, it's under new business, but anything that needs to be like filed away for, future reference, like the minutes, we keep those and they have to be posted to the website
I
and
see.
things like that. So those would be.
Okay.
And I believe also, am I right in saying that you, occasionally the clerk might get a member of the public to
Yeah.
send something
Mhm.
to the clerk that is related to the commission?
Yes, but those would fall under comments. So if it's related to a specific agenda item, we would link to that under the agenda item in new business. Or if it's just a general but commission related topic, it would be linked to under the open forum section. Or if we receive public comments that are just not related to the commission whatsoever, we would actually send those to a different commission and be recognized there.
All right, so, given how much we've got to cover, if you're all fine with just the fact that if the agenda the minutes have been approved, then I think we'll just move on. So the next item is the open forum. And this is the opportunity for members of the public to speak on any item that doesn't appear on today's agenda. And that's within the subject, but it's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. And if you could, please limit your comments to 2 minutes and raise your hand and I'll call on you in order that you raised your hand. And just be aware that in addition to the 2 minutes, as you begin to speak, if you give us your name, that would be helpful. So are there any members of the public that want to speak on something other than the agenda items for today? Just in general that relates to the commission? No, so if not, we will
Karen?
move on to the consent calendar.
Before we move on, this might be a good opportunity for me to just update on the vacancy since it's not on the agenda.
Okay,
So Ann Bayless with the City of San Jose. So I was asked to provide an update on the status of the vacancy. I conferred with Energy and we came up with a recommendation. We provided that on the 1st of May to the mayor's office. Well, we provided it to the clerk's office, who then referred our recommendation to the mayor. The mayor will ultimately be making the recommendation that goes to council for approval. We're hoping June 18th that it will go to council for approval. If it does not make it June 18th, then we will not have a new commissioner until at least August because council does not meet in July. So keeping our fingers crossed that the mayor's office gets through. It's only one person, so I'm hoping it will move a little more quickly than when it was like the full commission that we were recommending, and hopefully June 18th.
and I guess moving on to the consent calendar, and I have to admit that I'm still in learning mode. I have that the March minutes are actually part of the consent calendar.
You're right.
And so, so let's go ahead, and since we need to approve the consent calendar anyway, let's go ahead and since, are there any comments about the March minutes? Currently not. Okay, and I don't think there's anything else on the consent calendar that I'm aware of. So in that case, let's go ahead and approve the consent calendar. And sure,
Have
Bill.
we been given the minutes? Did I miss something?
Yes, they were in the packet that Ann sent
Well, they
you.
were emailed.
They were emailed just after the meeting.
Just a few days, a week or so after the meeting.
And so, so if there's no, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Tony. Is there a second? Great, thank you, Tracy. And those in favor of approving the consent calendar? Yeah, raising hands, please. So it's unanimous, 10 votes in favor, none opposing. All right, now we're getting more into the media stuff. Let's move on to the next order of business, reports and information only. So yet again, I'm not aware that there are any reports or information that sit outside the new old or new business of the agenda. Is that correct, Ann?
That's right.
Okay, so I don't think we need to do anything with this. Am I right? We don't need to
Yeah.
approve it. We just move forward. So moving on to old business. Is there, the next item is old business. Is there any old business to address, Ann? No. So again, I guess there's nothing to approve, so we'll move on to the next item, which is new business. And here's where the meaty part of the meeting is. The first item is a series of discussions that will introduce us to Climate Smart. We'll start with the Environmental Service Department that will present an overarching introduction to Climate Smart and discuss the Climate Smart initiatives. And I am not
That's
aware.
me.
Is that Ann? Is that you?
That's me. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. So if you don't know, I'm Ann Bayless. I work with the Environmental Services Department on the Climate Smart team. The Climate Smart Division works with most other departments within the city to further initiatives and goals related to Climate Smart San Jose, the San Jose's Climate Action Plan. And next slide, please. In April 2022, the IPCC released its sixth full climate assessment report based on peer-reviewed scientific studies over the past 5 years or so. The report concluded that the recent changes in the climate are widespread, intensifying, and unprecedented. It is a threat to our well-being and all other species. It shows clearly that we are slipping from a trajectory to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Any further delay in concerted global climate action will miss a rapidly closing window.
I could add a comment to that slide because I use it in my climate reality presentations. But if you superimpose the global temperature, it follows, it's a mirror image of that. And the scary part about that's the CO2. And I'm talking now about the global temperature. And it rises and falls exactly in sync with that thing, except when we get to today. And the global temperature is still, down below. And so the scary part of that slide is if we don't do something, the temperature starts to rise in conjunction, which it always has in the past. We're screwed.
Yeah, you're fine. You said it nicely. Yes.
It didn't sound aggressive. All right, next slide, please. And we know that even now that we are seeing the impacts of climate change here in San Jose and in California from extreme heat, drought, and wildfires. The IPCC report indicates strong and sustained reductions in emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases would limit climate change. And it's important that we continue to guide and support our organization and our community in taking urgent action to curb the worst impacts of climate change. Next slide. Our Climate Smart San Jose plan, approved in 2018, was designed to meet the goal of the Paris Climate Agreement. Its focus on energy, mobility, and water conservation strategies are encompassed within 3 primary pillars, which are shown here. The strategies under each pillar focus on goals and metrics to increase renewable energy, make building energy efficient and all electric, increase electric cars and transport, shift to biking, walking, and other low emission transport options, and make smart land use decisions to reduce vehicle miles traveled. The document was designed to align with the city's general plan and is a living document that will be updated along with the general plan. A core tenet of the Climate Smart Plan is the goal of a good life 2.0, which links climate smart choices to a desire for improved quality of life for residents and includes cost-benefit analysis of techniques outlined in the plan. In addition, it lays the framework for a focus on clean energy, transportation, and electrification, while also outlining several other key strategies to achieve this good life 2.0.
Yeah. So that last column is essentially a carbon dioxide budget for San Jose equivalent. And it adds to 6.9 million metric tons. Is that blue box at the bottom.
Yes,
And
building so.
with, in 2030, where's the city want to be on that chart?
So when the climate smart plan was drafted, the goal was 2050.
Okay,
So when this was created, the goal was 2050, aligning with Paris. And then actually later we get into pathway to carbon neutrality, which is 2030, which would be carbon neutral.
okay. So what does carbon neutral mean on that chart?
Carbon neutral would mean that we are essentially net zero with our carbon emissions.
So whatever emissions we have, we've offset some way to zero it out.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of,
Yeah.
While Climate Smart already set ambitious goals, the ambitious climate goal by 2050, the city recognized the urgency of climate change and in November 2021 set a carbon neutrality goal by 2030. Carbon neutrality means having net zero GHG emissions in a given year. With that goal in place, council then approved the city's pathway to carbon neutrality by 2030 plan in June 2022. This plan solidified 3 focus areas to reach our accelerated goal: buildings, transportation, and power source, which make up 85% of community-wide emissions. It also laid out 4 key strategies around those focus areas: moving to zero emissions vehicles, reducing miles we travel in vehicles by 20%, switching our appliances from natural gas to electric, and powering our community with 100% carbon neutral electricity through San Jose Clean Energy.
So is the circle is sort of where the reductions are coming from. So you map it back to the first, I'm in the first person.
Yeah.
I guess. If you mapped it back to the other one, the transportation was like 4 million or something.
Yeah.
So we're gonna knock that 4 million, if we knock it off, that's 51% of the goal.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this is where it's all coming from. The reductions are coming from.
For the pathway, yes, for the goals of 2030, yes, that's. Next slide. Our current progress on reducing GHG emissions is shown by the light blue dots, and the light blue line is our carbon neutrality goal. So that's the 2030 goal.
Yeah.
The darker blue line represents a business as usual projection for San Jose at the time that the Climate Smart Plan was created, 2018. The green represents the original Climate Smart pathway to emissions reductions, meeting the Paris Agreement goals not to increase global temperatures by more than 2 degrees Celsius. So that was the 2050 goal. Okay. We are currently working to update the Climate Smart Plan by incorporating the pathway to carbon neutrality by 2030, the natural and working lands element, which focuses on sequestration, and if available, the zero waste element, which is waste reduction and consumption, led by our integrated waste management team, and the resiliency plan, which is led by the city manager. This update also includes updates to our metrics for success, which can be found on the data dashboard, which is online, and the Climate Smart model. Climate Smart was created with the community in mind. In order for the plan to be successful, it is important to understand what drives and motivates decisions in the community, what are hurdles and obstacles to implementation. Therefore, a core part of Climate Smart are partnerships. Climate Smart has worked with environmental groups, youth groups, technical advisory boards, a city technical working group, stakeholders meetings, and more. The Climate Smart team often partners with different groups and organizations to develop and co-create outreach initiatives. ESD and Climate Smart in particular are interested in moving from a typical engagement process where we inform stakeholders to one where we collaborate and even empower stakeholders. For this, we have been instituting co-creation processes for large project and building efforts, most recently with the creation of our framework for existing building electrification. For that effort, we funded and engaged with community-based organizations representing and gathering input from San Jose Vietnamese and Latinx communities. The final product represented the community's priorities, which centered around health, cost, and workforce development benefits. San Jose is large geographically and has a large population. It has a large Latinx and Vietnamese communities. For many, English is not the first language spoken at home, and we want to make sure everyone has access to our resources that are available. Climate Smart also has an online engagement platform called the Climate Smart Challenge. You put in information for your household and it lays out actions, costs, impact, and resources to support taking action. You can create teams and you can prioritize actions that you want to take. The challenge currently has nearly 900 users. Participants have completed more than 1,800 climate actions that have resulted in $60,500 saved, 230 tons of CO2 reduced, and 250,000 gallons of water saved. One program that Climate Smart works on for engagement with the platform is called Go Green Teams. We partner with community groups and schools to engage residents in the platform and educate them on changes that they can make. This is just one example. For a full list of Climate Smart initiatives, see attachment D, which should be the next document in the packet. Climate Smart staff collaborate across city divisions and departments to track and pursue private, state, and federal funding opportunities to support Climate Smart initiatives. The city has received over $23 million in funding in fiscal year 2023 to 2024 for Climate Smart initiatives thus far. The city staff have also applied for an additional $14.26 million in external funding with award noticing pending and is planning to submit applications for over $18 million in funding in the next few months. Funding received thus far in fiscal year 2023 to 2024 includes 3 awarded grants focused in disadvantaged communities in San Jose and support for biking infrastructure and planning, bike share expansion, pedestrian improvements, and building energy efficiency and electrification.
Could you repeat the biking?
Yeah, so
You said bike share. and what
funding
else?
has gone to biking infrastructure and planning,
Okay,
bike share expansion, pedestrian improvements, and building energy efficiency.
okay, thank you.
And since we're sort of just asking
Mhm.
questions as we go, could you characterize in general where the funding is coming from? I'm sure it's from a wide array of agencies, but is it primarily federal, primarily state? Where is it primarily coming from?
It's a combination of both. I think the larger sum grants are generally federal, but that's not to say we haven't had large grants that have come from the state as well.
Is there
But
someplace we can go to figure out what the grants are, what they're going to do?
yeah, usually at our stakeholders meetings, we include in the agenda what some of the upcoming grant opportunities that we're pursuing are. I can definitely, if
It's
that's
not part of the public record or anything like that?
I mean, we do have to go to council for approval when we apply for grants, so there are memos that are on the consent calendar that are presented at TNE or at council meetings. So they would be included.
That's the only 2 places we can find out.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if
Central place.
there's a better, not really, I mean, we keep things on hand and we, we're happy to provide a list if people are interested.
And through the, the meetings that we have at noon, the environmental
Mhm.
services meetings,
That's
quite
the
often you
stakeholder
have
meeting.
all the grants
Mhm.
listed. That's a great source.
Mhm. Yeah.
They meet up on the 3rd Thursday of every month.
There's some public
Yeah.
record of that.
Yeah, yeah, so it's.
Mhm. Yeah, we have agendas that we send out to people. And so if people are interested in that types of thing, unfortunately, we have to limit the number of commissioners that can attend that because obviously if we have more than a quorum, that's considered a meeting. But I could potentially make those agendas like an ongoing attachment to the agenda or something like that if that's definitely something that people would like.
Or just a
to do.
link to where that information is.
The packages for the Climate Smart meeting are posted on the city website.
For the stakeholders meetings,
Yes, the stakeholder.
the stakeholders meetings, I believe are just sent by email. They're available to anyone to request them, but we don't
Okay,
update those on the website. But they would be available if we make them as an attachment to the agenda and then they can post it on
Maybe
the
that's a good
commission's
idea.
website. So,
This thing.
Yeah, this document, like that's all the grants today.
yes, that does as well. And that's like a living document that we just keep on hand, but, we're happy to make it available to people, but it's not like posted somewhere that the public can access it.
Well, are there any other questions of Anne?
Yeah.
And I have, oh, you've got more.
Oh, and this is basically just my wrap up at this point. Basically, we're making progress, doing some great things, but we basically still have a lot to do. And we just hope to try to stay on track with our climate goals as much as possible. And that's it. Questions?
It looks, yeah.
You know, this is an ambitious plan that is going to require coordination with a lot of other city organizations. And I'm interested at some point in learning how that coordination is handled and how you're doing all of that stuff. So,
Like how we work with other departments and stuff
Exactly.
like that?
yeah,
Okay, I mean, we do have energy and the Department of Transportation here to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing.
right.
I can also let you know, we do have like a technical working group, which are representatives from various departments that also meets monthly, similar to the stakeholders meeting. We talk about the work and the programs that we're doing that way. And then Climate Smart specifically, we also meet independently with each department on a regular basis to discuss things. I guess the last thing I'll add is we are working on the update to our Climate Smart plan, which has included many meetings with all the relevant departments that are impacted by updates to this.
So I guess my question is, as you're going along, you know, things don't always work to plan, and how do you manage those kinds of conflicts?
Like, you mean like if we're falling behind schedule or something like that?
Well, one thing might not, you know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just constantly meeting and updating and letting people know where things are, what's going on. You know, I think generally at those meetings, we try to update what's going on with council. You know, things get delayed and pushed back when we're trying to go to council, and sometimes that impacts programs moving forward. Yeah, I think it's mainly just communications with each other as much as we can so we know what's happening.
Okay, and so do you have like a master plan of all of these things that are supposed to happen between now and 2030? It's not that long, right?
So as part of this update to the Climate Smart Plan, we want to keep the plan itself very high level, so it's not outdated quickly. But what we're envisioning for this round of the update is later, once we get the plan, you know, documented, figured out, approved, we want to create individual work plans with the departments. So Climate Smart would meet with each of them and we would develop like an annual work plan, something that would change more frequently.
Yeah.
And that would be like the specific list of actions and programs that we'd like to implement to meet the goals. So.
Okay, thanks.
I have a line of questions along the same lines as Tony here. So, you know, I guess what I would like to see, you know, is an extension of, you know, your timeline from now to 2030 with specific key points, you know, where we need to be at those points in order to achieve the 2030 goal. I mean, that's something that, you know, we should have. I mean, you know, then that way, then you would know whether you're ahead or behind or on schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what we hope the work plans will do. You know, I think they would be targeted towards the work we would be doing probably in the next calendar year, but I think the overarching goal would be that these are things that would implement long-term change.
And then would we be able to get like a semi-annual report? I know we've only got 5.5 years here to see this thing happen, but this commission's responsibility is to oversee the implementation of this plan. That being said, then we need to have some idea of where we stand.
Yeah, so right now, the approved work plan that was viewed by council includes updates from all the departments that go to council about where things are. So ESD's Climate Smart team provides semi-annual updates to council. We actually just had one, so it didn't make it to the commission, but we do anticipate that being regularly updated. So twice a year, we would be providing updates on, you know, where we're at based on the programs we were planning and what is up and coming. Those types of things. And then the other, you know, energy, DOT, they also have updates that go to council on a regular basis and they'll be bringing those.
Is it possible for us to get those updates just as a matter of course? That would be, I think, for those of us who especially care about specific topical areas, that would be very helpful.
You mean like past updates?
As they're generated.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's all included in the work plan. That's,
No, I mean, for us to get them automatically in our packet.
yeah,
Would
yeah.
that be possible?
Yeah, we would be bringing them here before they would go to council.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay.
Okay, my last comment, then I'll be quiet. So the county is also has a 2030 carbon neutrality goal. Is there any coordination between the city and the county, since we're at the county?
Yeah, we do participate. There are some like regional collaboration meetings that we meet with the county and discuss what we're doing. There's some grant opportunities that are more regional in aspect, and we are partnering with the county on some of those. Yeah, we do have a lot of conversations, so we're hopefully not like overlapping or competing
Right.
for grant opportunities and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is a function of, this is my first time to do this, so I'm gonna ask your indulgence. One thing I forgot to do that I think is really important is to allow everyone to introduce themselves, and I skipped right over that. So if it's okay, before we move on to the next presentation, I'd love to do that. And I'd like to start with the commissioners and then have the staff introduce themselves and then the public as well. So I guess, Victor, do you want to start for the commissioners?
Okay, I'm Victor Demeyer. I'm a commissioner. I was on clean energy. I'm an energy power guy. I spent his life doing power planning, electric system analysis and that kind of stuff. And I'm retired, but still consulting a little bit. Right now, trying to figure out if there's a future for nuclear and geothermal baseload in a world where there's a lot of cheap solar wind.
I'm Tony Strella. I also am a holdover from the Clean Energy Commission. I spent my working years at NASA doing atmospheric sciences and looking at climate and things like that.
Bill Vincenzi, retired San Jose State. Interestingly enough, accounting and finance professor, but my passion has been climate change for the last 6 years, trained with the Al Gore's group. And so I've done a lot of research and a lot of presentations in this area, which is why I'm very interested in getting on this commission to see what we're doing and what we can do here in the city. I'm also on the Santa Clara County Sustainability Commission. So sometimes be careful what you ask for. I never thought I would get one, get both, but anyway, you're right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tracy Lang. My day job, I'm the Assistant Director of Transportation and Transportation Demand Management, TDM, at UC Santa Cruz. I've spent my whole career in transportation. I'm here representing District 10 and excited to learn.
I'm Carrie Nelson, new chair of this commission, and I started out interested in environment at around 13 and did a lot of work, science fair work as a young person, got an environmental planning degree, did that for quite a while. And now that I'm retired, and when I was close to retirement, I started, founded the CRP Silicon Valley, and have been active in a lot of other environmental organizations.
Climate Reality Project, I don't know if they know what CRP is.
Oh, thank you, Bill. Just said it, Climate Reality Project, Al Gore's organization. And there are organizations all across the country and the world, chapters for him.
Garfunkel. I'm also a holdover from the San Jose Clean Energy Commission. Also, my background's in physics, so magnetic storage for 30 years until retiring. It's been 3 years ago. I'm also active with Karen roped me into Climate Reality Silicon Valley chapter. And a couple other groups around the state and the city.
So I'm Phil Remaker. I've been involved in the computer networking, storage, and data center industry for 30 plus years with an interest in originally power usage, power minimization, power conservation, and eventually that led me into generation issues, the economic issues, and ultimately greenhouse gas emissions. So I'm an industry representative for the commission.
I'm Lucia. I'm currently an undergrad at San Francisco State studying environmental studies, but I graduate next week. So I'm preparing to enter the workforce in a nonprofit. My main focus is community engagement and environmental justice, serving underrepresented and underserved communities of color. And I represent District 5, and this is my first time being a commissioner, so excited to learn and put on my resume.
Hello, I'm Mani Bekla. I'm a high school student. I've been active with Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action, working towards strong climate policies and electrification in this local area. And I am a youth representative for the commission.
Yeah, I'm Ruth Marino, and I'm retired from the city of San Jose. I was a program performance auditor. I retired in 2010, and since then I've been working on climate and energy issues. I started advocating for San Jose clean energy back in 2014, 2015. I was on the first commission, and I'm a big EV advocate.
And I guess if staff, if you could quickly introduce yourselves as well.
Oh, sure. Kayla Boardman, Public Information Representative with San Jose Clean Energy, also known as the Energy Department. I'm filling in today for Leticia, who is normally the one that will be running all the technical side of the meeting.
And I'm Ann Bayless. I am in the Environmental Services Department. I'm a Supervising Environmental Services Specialist, or SESS. Hold up the tongue a little easier, for Climate Smart. I've been with the city since 2014, and I am the commission liaison.
Hey everybody, Rand Smith, the Division Manager of Planning, Policy and Sustainability at Department of Transportation.
And from where, sir?
Department of Transportation here.
Great, thanks.
My name is Andrea Porta. I'm with the Emerging Mobility Group that is part of the Planning Sustainability Policy.
And I'm Lena Williams. I'm the Deputy Director of Account Services, Marketing and Communications for San Jose.
Any other staff with us? And I guess we have a couple members of the public.
Teresa Remaker. Teresa Remaker.
I'm Lisa Chaplin. My mom, I also did training with Climate Neutrality Project. I volunteer with Mothers Out Front and Green Control. And I am a big advocate of community food support. And work to get that installed in something.
Great, well, thank you all for indulging me to go back and do this. And I think now we are ready to have the Energy Department presentation.
You let you have the slides. I hope you don't mind if I stand just a little bit, since there's not really a place for me to sit. So, I think I'm this way. Okay. So I'm Lena Williams. I'm the Deputy Director of Account Services, Marketing and Communication for San Jose Clean Energy. So those of you who were part of the previous commission have seen me around every once in a while. I'm part of Zach's leadership team. I think he's joining via Zoom somewhere. But I'm going to give an overview of how it is that we support the city's goals as one of those legs as part of the Climate Smart initiative. What we've done so far, but I'm only doing a high level overview because we have two other presentations in the work plan that are upcoming that'll go into more detail. Some of the things I'll cover. Makes sense? So operated by the city of San Jose Clean Energy is also known internally as the Energy Department. So San Jose Clean Energy is the customer facing name of our division. We're providing clean energy for the city of San Jose as a community choice aggregator, so a CCA. If you happen to hear that, that's kind of the alphabet soup. It just means that as a city, we've actually gone out and started to buy the power that's being delivered to the residents of city of San Jose, so that we can determine what the power content for that power is going to be going forward. Currently, we're offering energy to over 350,000 customers within the city of San Jose. So that represents about 96.7% of the active accounts within the city that would be eligible to participate. And of that, about 75,000 of those customers are our care fair customers, our low-income customers that are participating in some of our additional discount programs and services. The team currently stands at 45 full-time staff, but we're continuing to grow. We've actually already outgrown our current space, so we may be moving again. And then, like I mentioned, we're a pillar of climate smart San Jose. Next slide. So I mentioned the CCA in terms of how community choice works. There are a lot of residents within the city of San Jose that actually don't know they're receiving their energy from us. And the reason for that is because when we went into effect, everybody was automatically enrolled in service, and then they contact us if they want to opt out. So we go out and source or buy the power that's being utilized. It's put out there on the grid. It's still delivered by PG&E, and all of our bill charges actually are reflected on the PG&E bill. So if a customer pulls up their bill, they'll find us on page 1, located there, and our pages are just inserted into the statement. So basically, the service that we're providing is no longer being charged by PG&E. Everybody gets a credit for that charge on their PG&E side of the bill, and then we take over and actually bill for that service, that portion of your service. Slide. So some of the benefits, so right now we have a higher renewable energy content, and we also offer a 100% renewable energy option if customers want to contact us and opt up to that. So customers are choosing anywhere from 60% renewable energy up to 100%. We have competitive rates with PG&E. So right now our average customer discount is about 8% off generation rate. Of PG&E's generation rates, our customers are continuing to save by being served by us. And then ultimately, our energy programs will actually represent our reinvestment in the community in the form of energy programs. And that's how we support also the ongoing electrification. So in terms of a bill comparison, this just uses our current rates so that folks can see how each one of our services compares to PG&E and what that would look like on their bill. As I mentioned, Green Source has 60% renewable energy. Customers that are eligible for the Care and Fair discount, so those are low-income customers, they automatically receive SJ Cares, which offers an additional discount off of our Green Source rate, so they get an additional 10% off of this rate right here. Customers who opt up to 100% renewable have total green, and you can see it's very different. It's gonna be not very different from what they would be paying PG&E anyway, but some folks go for the savings over the 100% renewable. It depends. You have a question?
Yeah, I mean, how is this being marketed? Because I still know a lot of people who haven't signed up for 100% total green.
Oh,
And
in terms
it's a
of
no-brainer to
green?
me, but it's like,
Well, so it actually, we haven't done a really broad renewable energy campaign for the 100% for the total green because the cost of energy right now is so high. Not just, for customers, but I mean for us on the open market, and then also in terms of RECs and resource adequacy, which is something else that as a load serving entity we have to have to back up all of what we're doing here. It ends up being a little bit more expensive. So we kind of base it on where the market stands. So folks do opt up though. I know Keela has helped folks get their signs and people opt up to total green. So that is continuing to happen on a monthly basis. It's simply that we defaulted during enrollment, everybody's defaulted into Green Source because that's where you get kind of the benefit of the cleaner energy, but you also get some savings right on your bill, and then give everyone the option to opt up to total green if that's something that they want to do.
Yes. That implies we're actually maybe losing money or breaking even at best on the total green 1 cent adder.
So approximately, so it depends on what rate class, because we did our cost of service studies. So some customers cost a little bit more to serve than others, but in most cases it is a break even. We were losing money because we only had, some customers only had half a penny adder. Now it's just a penny across the board for everybody. That helps make up some of that difference.
And these are the latest rates, the ones that were approved in what?
In February City Council.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's the comparison to PG&E's rates that went into effect in January. So we changed our rates a little bit later into the year. Okay, next slide. So in terms of the long-term renewable sources, For those that were in the previous commission, you had an opportunity to see a little bit more about the integrated resource plan, which is very long term, but it basically is our plan for how we're gonna get to that 100% renewable for everyone so that we can help meet that carbon neutrality goal by 2030. But we do invest in larger, long-term contracts, just like any other energy company would. We're just looking at projects, right, that are renewable energy, that have battery storage. So we're looking at wind, we're looking at hydroelectric, so on and so forth, so that over time we can build up that portfolio of renewable energy that eventually gets to the point where we see an increasing power content that is higher than 60% and then starts to make its way right towards the carbon neutral by 2030. So that'll be a different presentation. That's why I just say the slide is here. But that's one of the ones that you'll get a separate.
Do you have an estimated date for the battery storage?
I do not.
Okay, so we'll get it when we get the.
Yes, and I know that if you were to go to in the last year's presentation on the integrated resource plan, it was part of that packet and part of what was covered when we had Sean come in and actually present that larger strategy that we have for meeting those goals. I know some projects did have delay. I know when you hear about interconnection, it's not just happening to residential solar customers, it's happening to large scale utility as well. So we update right as we receive updates.
How actively are we working, partnering with other CCAs in the state to joint renewable projects?
So that's a good question. So there's actually another JPA called CC Power. And it's actually made up of a few of the Bay Area CCAs of what's a Bay Area, 3CE, Silicon Valley Clean Energy, for example. So there are contracts where we're leveraging that buying power of combining, right, the load across multiple districts.
And what was the name of that group again?
CC Power?
CC Power? Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
How much, I'm not sure this is a well-framed question, but how much of our power do we need to buy on the sort of near-term spot market?
So it depends on the year. So I know that like we're looking at scenarios where we have over 80%, for example, for next year, but then as things change, right, we may find, okay, all of us, I don't know, last year was really mild, right, for example. So where we had usually kind of purchased power to account for energy spikes in the summer when people are turning on the AC, that didn't happen last year, right? So then we will find ourselves in a different place during the year. So
over 80%, so they're
over 80% is already
long-term
procured,
contracts.
is already procured,
already
right?
procured, long-term.
Yes. Yeah, and when in the integrated resource plan, and I know it's been updated to account for the market more recently. But if you look at that previous, you can see how year over year we get closer, as we get closer to the actual year, we get closer to that 100%, but we're never right at, like, so we'll find ourselves procuring each month something.
Thank you.
And energy programs, so I mentioned that utilizing some of that revenue that's generated from San Jose residents, ratepayers, we actually use that to fund our energy programs. So more recently, only last month, our programs were met for the upcoming fiscal year was approved. So there will be a later presentation of each program, what that strategy is, and how much was funded for each of those initiatives. And then usually each year there's an additional update on how things went in the previous year. So those are things that as a committee you would still be receiving as the new combined commission as well. So, but the focus, of course, right, is to make sure that everything that we're doing in our energy programs, not only it benefits customers, right, there's an emphasis on equity and making sure that previously underinvested in communities have access to the energy dollars, and then also, of course, making sure that the things that we're doing help support the goals in terms of electrification and like building electrification and transportation electrification within the city as well.
When the rates increase, went in or was discussed with council back in February.
Mhm.
I think Zach said that there was going to be $7 million for programs this year, which was more than we had been expecting last year as part of it. Does that go into this coming budget that we get emails from the mayor about, or is that, where does that happen?
So
When does that
San
become
Jose
real
Clean
money?
Energy is an enterprise fund, so we're self-funding or self-supporting, kind of like the airport.
So it's
does.
separate from the
So
city budget, right?
it's separate from the city budget.
Yeah.
So there's a separate report on that budget and how those funds are applied.
And will this commission have some say in how these funds are applied? Is there a plan, or when will we learn about this, or will we ever?
You know what, so it's on the work plan for this year for energy programs to actually come in and present the same that they have done every year. They did take in some of the feedback that came from the previous commission at the end of the year into the development of the work plan. Excuse me, the roadmap for the upcoming year. And so I feel like they're gonna continue to do that for the purpose of having someone come in, is to share where things have gone, what the progress has been in the past, and then to continue to get feedback.
So then we'll see where the $7 million went.
Yes. Yes. So you'll hear what the plan is, and then you'll get that follow-up again when they come back on how that, which programs were successful and how they landed.
Question, sort of up and down.
Oh, that's okay. This is my last, this is, yeah.
Okay, good. The media a couple of weeks ago kind of was talking about PG&E, crops decreases 2 years out. You guys have any comments on this?
So when we did our cost of service study, we did it so that we didn't necessarily have to be reactionary and change every single time PG&E did. But when we set our rates this year, it was forecasted that PG&E had planned a rate drop. So we did that analysis for this year's rates. We looked at it in such a way that we wanted to align with where would customers still benefit if that actually happened. But we do go back to council actually in August 15th. I believe it's Tuesday, August 15th, to actually make our recommendations based on those new proposed changes or updates. I believe it's Tuesday, August 15th. Peter can double check because maybe the 13th.
It's the 13th, which I think it was proposed will go into effect on the 15th.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if it passes, it'll go into effect on the 15th. So we'll basically be taking those rate proposals from PG&E, running it against our analysis on where we set our rates in February, and then identifying what adjustments, if any, we want to make. Any other questions? I know there'll be a lot. You'll think of it afterwards. That's okay. I'll be back. All right, well, thank you so much. And we look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you so much. And now we're moving on to the Department of Transportation presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name again is Andrea Arjona. I'm with the Emerging Mobility team at DOT. I work mostly on electric mobility, and emerging mobility is part of the planning policy and sustainability division. Francis Major here is our division manager. Next, please. So this is a very brief introduction. To what DOT is doing to achieve climate smart goals. One of the main questions that DOT is trying to resolve is how to drive people to shift from driving vehicles to using more sustainable modes of transportation. So in order to meet those carbon neutrality goals and other sustainability goals, we really need to flip the scale. So we're looking at a completely reversing the mode split by 2040. So having only 40% of people driving vehicles and 60% using transit, bicycling, walking, or using share modes. And going as far as the 2050 goal, which is having only 12% of people driving vehicles and using alternative modes and transit. Next slide, please.
The 12%,
sounds ambitious. Yes.
I mean, it's nice, but
So, yeah, so, in order to really move the needle, I mean, there's a couple of strategies that we're trying to move forward, really. One in the short term is maybe electrify a little bit the status quo. Is having more electric vehicles and promoting more of EV usage and things like that. But as we move towards, later years, we really want to transform the way that our streets look like to be able to focus more on how people move and making other modes more enjoyable. So it is an ambitious goal.
so how does that little comment there, carbon neutrality by 2030 fit into that?
Yeah, so those mode shift goals, achieving the 40%, drive alone mode share is aligned with the carbon neutrality goals that Anne was explaining before.
Because I just don't see the connection.
You don't see the connection?
Yeah, so I'll say two things. We're trying to do two things at once, right? One, and from the DOT's perspective, the most important thing is to create an environment where folks can travel outside of the vehicle as much as possible. Now, we've done a study and shown that 50% of trips within San Jose are a distance that people, if given the right environment, could walk or bike or take a scooter or all of these things, right? And so that's kind of one of our primary things. Now, that kind of change is structural. Right? That kind of change is taking streets and taking parking away, taking that third lane away and making it into other things. Right? You can imagine how hard that is. Right? Folks do not want that stuff to leave a lot of the time. So that's a kind of structural, lower long-term change. And at the same time, we're also doing the electrification charge at the same time. Right? And so those two things aligned together are projected through the models we have to be able to get us to that carbon neutrality. We're counting on a lot of state and regional action to be able to make that happen, right? Because that's literally billions of dollars in funding, right? BART is only one part of that, and a small part of that. But we need to see significant improvements in rail, significant improvements in transit, and significant changes in what our streets look like, right? And we're getting a lot of money from the state and feds to do that kind of thing. And we need to do the electrification push. And there, the all vehicles to be electric by 2030 is a significant piece of what we're hoping to drive and change with this.
There's a lot of what ifs in what you just said.
That's absolutely right.
Yes.
So we don't make significant change, we'll put it's out there, right? Sure.
Well, for example, with that, two of us live in West San Jose near Lawrence and Saratoga way off that way. We came here tonight in a car. What's the expectation? How will come in 2050?
Yeah, I think so. Two things. One, we understand there are certain neighborhoods that are going to be kind of car locked. Right? And those are the neighborhoods where we need electrification to really take hold. Right? And luckily, a lot of those neighborhoods are actually more wealthy, and the turnover of the actual auto fleet is happening faster. And as you probably all know, this area is the fastest adopting area in the entire country for that. So there are neighborhoods where we expect electric vehicles to be the answer to this. Now, as densification happens, right? I'm talking Stevens Creek, I'm talking San Carlos, I'm talking about major portions like that. That's where we're going to see more of that transit take hold, right? But we're in a multi-agency planning effort with the city of Cupertino, Santa Clara, VTA, the county, and ourselves to make Stevens Creek a major transit corridor. We've been working on that for 5 years already just to get a basic plan together so that we can then do something, right? So we understand that takes a long time. So I would say probably from a lot of West San Jose until we see actual densification happen, which is not in our general plan yet, to continue to be electric vehicle. That's the main piece.
But if it weren't, would we then in the future take electric buses or?
We would love to see that, yeah. But how do you say, transit only works with a certain amount of density of lanes. Right? Because you have to pay so much to make the services happen. You have to have enough customers to make the actual ridership be able to pay for services, right? So the balance of that is a constant conversation with VTA and regional partners like Caltrain and TC.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This may not be a fair question.
Please, sure.
But if you were to choose, and I think I can guess, but I'd like to hear it from you, the top, say, of that whole long list, there, other than driving, the top three that you might be focusing on sooner than later, what are your top two or three on that list that you're really focused on? I
Yeah.
would imagine biking is one.
So the three top things we're focused on in this area are, one, transit, right?
Okay.
The city has taken a back seat in transit planning and transit development for a significant amount of time. We passed a plan called New San Jose, Andres, we'll talk about it in a second, a couple of years ago. And that put in 3 pillars of action that we're taking in San Jose. One of them is streets planning, talk about that in a second. Second one is actually making transit a core piece of city transformation. Transit is run by another agency, they're our partner, right? That partner agency needs a better environment to run it. We run that system, we run the streets, right? So what are the things we can do to make transit work better? Right? One, we've been putting a lot of money and effort into transit signal priority, which is making buses be able to run faster, making them more attractive to more people. A lot of us don't take the bus. Why? Well, because pretty much any other mode is faster, right? We're making that. We've got funding now, about 5 years from now, every single frequent network route within the VTA network will have transit signal priority on it. Buses will be able to move faster through their routes, right? We're trying to get a airport connector built, which will connect Diridon to downtown. We're heavily invested in getting the BART project done, and we've been supporting Caltrain in their electrification, right? So that's another pillar. Second one, bikes, right? Making the bike infrastructure significantly better. We already have our last bike plan was retired about 2 or 3 years ago. And I will proudly say it's one of the few bike plans in the country that basically got done. There were, of course, little chads here and there that we didn't get done. But generally, we actually built out the network we planned to do. Put out a new plan that focuses on upgrading the current infrastructure. A lot of people say, hey, you have bike lanes, nobody's really using them. Well, if you have a bike lane on Stevens Creek that's painted, folks driving 40 miles an hour on it, unless you're wearing spandex and have a little bit of hood spot, you're not riding your bike there, right? So to make people use bikes on a daily basis, we need to give them protected, safe places to ride, right? So that's one of our second one. And then third one is electric vehicles, right? So all three of those things are coming together.
Great, thank you, thanks.
Is the city or the region looking at e-bike incentives?
E-bike incentives, we have talked about that a lot, whether we do either incentives directly for purchase. One of the items that we're looking at a lot is e-bike libraries. So folks can use them and share ways. We have the Bay Wheels program already, which we just got 2 different grant sources to significantly expand that out to the east side. We're very happy with that. We're just starting to get some of those funds and do the planning to get that out there. So, you know, we as the city feel like the most important thing to do is create shared options, right? The financing of that is a lot better, and we have a lot more ability to control make that happen. But we look directly at incentives. We're looking at that. If we would do that, we would be focusing on lower income folks.
So is it envisioned the biking, scootering share the same lane space, given that a lot of the vehicles are different amounts of power? Some of the e-bikes are frighteningly fast. Sharing space with ordinary pedal bikes could be a problem for your safety goals.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And one I would say we are very, very attuned to, and at the same time, at the moment, we don't see the density of use within them to see the conflicts happening in a way that matters just yet. But we are anticipating those problems happening. And so what we're trying to do is create enough infrastructure, protected bike lanes and the like, that will enable use by as many people as possible. Now, I would say, we can't create then a third lane, right? We don't have space to say, here's the slow bike lane and here's the fast bike lane, right? So we're relying on a few different things. Right? One, human decency, right? Now, can't always rely on that. Yeah. And the second one is where there's state laws trying to figure this out, right? Are e-bikes, what's the difference between an e-bike and an electric moped? Where is that line, right? Because electric mopeds would be pushed into the street with cars, right? And so that's a state law issue that hasn't been resolved yet. There's a lot of bills being kind of bandied about the last few years that tried to define that. There's also a lot of, I would say, hesitancy to make that happen too quickly. Okay? Because but right now, we don't have the amount of usage. You know, you go to Bangkok, you go to a lot of agencies, you have an immense amount of use of two-wheel vehicles. Now, a lot of those would be electric. You have a density of use there that kind of pretends the need or begs the need for
This
management.
city cannot play that game of regulating the speed on the streets,
We can,
on the city streets at least.
there's only so much control we have over city street speeds. We actually just fought really hard to be able to control speeds in certain districts within the city. We just got we just supported a bill that allows us in business districts and high density areas and a couple other areas where we can reduce the speeds based on what we believe to be important. So there's a lot of places we'd love to see 20-mile-an-hour speed limits there. But there's still a lot of reliance on what we would say autofocus speed setting, or we call the 85th percentile, which means that we literally have to, by law, look at what the 85th percentile meaning, what 85% of folks are, that 85th percentile of speed, and the speed must be set there. This is an old way of thinking that's, encased in law, and we've been fighting that.
That's state?
Yes. Yeah, and we've been working really hard to try and change that. We've been, I think, successful, but honestly, that was a 6-year effort to just be able to do it in certain districts. I would say the newer generation of legislators are much more open to this, but there's a lot of folks who still say, hey, you're just trying to, and we hear this constantly, you're just trying to reduce speed so you can write tickets. Right? And this is not true, but it is the perception out there, right? We as the public servants are seen as leeches or something like that.
Unfortunately, there is a track record of cities doing that, which is why the 85%.
Yeah, well, that was a long time ago, right? I would say in our types.
Memory is long.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No, that's right. That's right.
And timing on the red light cameras is.
Exactly.
I will say another one we just won legislatively that's interesting is speed cameras. In California, it has not been allowed until actually right now to put out speed cameras. Many other states in America and pretty much every other industrialized nation allows speed cameras. Speed cameras are a highly effective tool to reduce speeds. And so we say there's speed limits, and then there's what people actually travel. All right, and if you can get those cameras out there, people come down towards the actual posting limit pretty quickly. We actually we have a good budget item, and we should get some good news from the state to get $11 million to get our pilot program out there.
Thank you. Yeah, so I know what we're fighting against is like 100 years of transportation strategies that prioritize vehicles and traffic speed flows over, people's movement, access, and well-being. So yes, the challenge is immense. Not everything in the transportation landscape is going to be within DOT's control, but we're working really hard is to coordinate with other agencies, like our transit agencies, and with other organizations to make sure that everything is kind of like aligned with that. The next slide. So one way that we're trying to address this is to create really transformative plans that would allow us to reinvent our streets, as Ramses was mentioning. So one of those is the citywide transportation plan of San Jose, which was approved by council in 2022. And that plan really lays out how we're going to implement these changes, like having more pedestrian amenities and safety features in our streets, or protected bike lanes for all ages and abilities across the street, or green infrastructure improvements that will really help us with a number of co-benefits. So the idea is that the citywide transportation plan guides other more specific plans, like for example, the Emerging Mobility Action Plan that guides how emerging mobility services such as car share or microtransit will be laid out in the city, whether or not communities will have access to that, whether or not the services will be affordable for everyone, and other types of plan like the Better Bike Plan that Ramses was mentioning before, which is really to have this network of bikeways in which everyone will feel comfortable using that mode of transportation.
Separated, the bike lanes are separated by curb?
Yes,
Or
in this case,
something physical?
yeah, in this case, there is kind of like a physical barrier. So not every single bike lane that you see today is a protected bike lane. I think not all of the streets are suitable for a protected bike lane. We would like to have as many as those because really having a barrier is what makes people feel safer. But what we're trying to do is, in the meantime, we get the funding also to get that level of infrastructure, is to do what we call quick build projects, like what you see on San Fernando Street, in which we put bollards and really start trying to make that separation and test that out. And that what that allows us is to achieve kind of like a timely safety outcome, and at the same time iterate on that design and figure out what really works for that urban environment, considering all of the other modes that are connected in those streets.
Well, I'll just a second to Andrea's great points is what we generally are trying to do is take quick action. That's why we call it quick build. And that's where you see all these green and yellow pillars all over the city. We know they're ugly, but we prefer safety over beauty at the moment. And most of those projects will end up with concrete over time. The cost factor is something like 10x when you go from those plastic to curb. There's a lot of state rules around when you try to put the cement in. You also have to then do green infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of rules around the change you make that make those projects cost a lot. But in the end, you get a better project, but it does take us longer. So for example, San Fernando, which is right here, a block over, we've had it quick build for a while now. We do have a federal grant. That's why it takes so long. Federal grants always take an extra couple of years to implement. That will all be separated in the next couple of years.
So it'll be kind of like 10th Street.
A little bit like 10th Street. 10th and 11th Street was a very innovative project where we couldn't do what we would like to do, which is just have a bike lane. So we create basically frontage roads that do an interesting kind of only local traffic can go, and that local traffic is minimal and slow, and mixing bikes at that point is okay. It's actually been a very successful project, both for bikes, but also for reducing speeds on the road.
And of course, we also have neighborhood plans. We have multimodal transportation improvement plans and other more sort of like local-based plans that lay out basically the specific projects, policies, or programs that need to happen at those specific areas in order to have that level of street transformation that we would like to see. Please. So these are some of the goals that Move San Jose laid out. And these are not just goals that DOT put forward. This plan was basically built with a lot of community engagement in it. I think there were user personas that were developed in order to understand really the needs of residents and understand how we can meet future needs and meet those two together. Slide, please. And that plan also lays out about 26 strategies about how we can achieve this mode shift, very ambitious mode shift goal. So these are some of those strategies that we would like to see on our streets, that we would like to see with transit, and the type of policies and programs that we'd like to develop. So for example, meeting these low stress bike facilities in the low street strategy would be implemented in part through our better bike plan or future bike plans. And others as well. So basically, it's like our master plan that informs how we need to implement everything else with more specific slide, please. So this is just a short list of key programs, projects, and policies that are currently under implementation related to climate smart. A couple that I can highlight is the Parking and Transportation Demand Management Ordinance, which basically eliminates parking requirements for new development in favor of sustainable investments for alternative modes of travel. So that could be, for example, implementing bike facilities or amenities at new infrastructure projects, at new development projects, or for example, providing transit passes, for new residents. Another key strategy is the transit first policy, as Ramses mentioned. We don't have control over actual transit operations, but we do have control about how we laid out our streets to facilitate transit access. So we're focusing on really paying attention to transit transfer improvements, station improvement, and things like that to kind of like coordinate that effort. And some of the things that we are planning right now include things such as the downtown mobility hubs, which is the rendering that you see in the presentation. So this is a grant that we got through MTC, through the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, to develop two of a network of about 26 mobility hubs that are planned for the downtown area in San Jose. And these are facilities on the street that facilitate transfers between different nodes. So they would have amenities, for example, to charge an e-bike, and they will have transit information at them, and you could easily transfer from one node to another. So you will have potentially an extra station, a lot of pedestrian amenities, transit stop nearby, and this is the kind of thing that we would like to see in the streets. Of course, a lot of this depends on funding. We are very active in pursuing funding for all of these projects. We coordinate with other departments in many other projects. For example, in infrastructure, we coordinate closely with the Clean Energy Department and the Public Works Department to try to increase the number of EV chargers that we have available for the public at city facilities, both for fleet and public use. So with that said, this was a brief introduction. We're happy to, yes.
Can you explain more about the electric transit pilot?
Yes, so right now we are developing a project with different community-based organizations in East San Jose to develop a microtransit project that potentially could be sustained through a cooperative agreement. And we are pursuing funding to be able to implement that with the community.
So I noticed a member of the public had a question on the Zoom call. I don't know if everybody is managing that.
Yes, we actually are not allowed to take virtual public comment right now. Public comment is only for in-person only.
Oh,
So I
okay.
did see that, but yes, as of a new city policy, public comment can only be done in person for those who are joining virtually.
I was aware of
to
that.
ask the question you're saying.
Yes. Ask the question.
Oh, unfortunately, I don't remember what it was.
So I want to give a little more to Tracy's question. So the electric micromobility project, if it comes off the ground, would serve really the east side neighborhoods. What we're looking at is as the light rail extension gets built, right, there's two stations on that extension, one down at East Ridge Mall and then one here. And originally there was the concept that there would be an Ocala station in the middle of that, which is right at where the Hillview Airport is. And there's still direction to look at a future station addition there. But the neighborhoods have basically said, hey, we expected that third station. So we're working with PTA to figure out if we can create a micro transit project, which would basically be an on-demand transit system with no fixed endpoints that would serve into the transit system. It's quite a hard project because the worst thing you can do is put a project out there for 2 or 3 years, right? And that's what grants do, right? They give you initial phase or capital phase, but at that point, you then need to run a system, right? And operations is very hard. As you all know, public operations is a huge hit at the moment across the state. Us coming out and saying, hey, we built the system, we don't have enough money to run it after so many years, trying to avoid that. So we're trying to be creative about how that program gets run. The community-based organization actually becomes the deliverer of that once we get it set up. So we're looking at there, and there's another one. There is a micro transit program already being run in Santa Clara. We're looking at maybe being able to expand that, but again, the operations funds are half a million a year. to do that expansion. It's actually a decent amount of money.
Follow-up question. If microtransit's on demand, is it more of accessibility for those that don't have a car or just some way to get around? Or is it actually reducing VMTs if it's still picking one person up from here and one person from here and driving all around? Like, is it actually more sustainable?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And so it's a question of who the users are and what they would do otherwise, right? And so we would expect, and what we see in other systems like this is you get a lot of elderly folks who can't drive themselves and we're using paratransit. So it's cheaper than paratransit. That's what we have. Will you potentially be adding VMT? Maybe, but general research shows that if you offer non-single occupancy modes, right, and create an environment in which people can live in that way, they don't drive as much, and thus the overall trips get kind of aggregated in more ways, right? And so that's the hypothesis, and that's what's been shown in other places. We'd have to see if that works out here, but the social service plus trying to get folks into that environment is kind of the goal. It's a long-term investment. Trying to reduce
In addition to that, the idea is to have some hub locations in which microtransit would be run by electric vehicles, if possible, would be able to use as hub stations to charge at city-owned facilities, potentially libraries and community centers. So to facilitate that access to communities and just try a different way to go around that is not driving your. Thank you.
I think maybe just answering that question, but is my understanding correct, microtransit basically means in multi-passenger car or vans?
That's right. Yeah, generally, VIA is the most famous company in the country that does this. You get anywhere from an 8 to 12 passenger vehicle. We would require it to be electric. Yeah, and it picks people up, tries to pick up as many people as possible.
Didn't VCA try that with Flex some years back?
They did, and
I noticed that it doesn't run anymore, so I can make guesses about how long it was.
I mean, I'll say a couple things about that. One, the cost structure, the reason why VTA is not doing microtransit has to do with their union cost structure. And so the way, the amount that they have to pay their drivers versus what other folks who pay their drivers is just more, right? I don't like saying that because that's basically a union issue and all of that. The other thing is their pilot basically required the service to make the same revenue as a general service would in the pilot. I would argue that that's the wrong metric to say success, right?
It's useful, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you both for very enlightening. I hope we hear more from you on your plans.
Yeah, I believe we have on the work plan a transportation-focused meeting in a few months as we dive deeper in. And so one of the questions, actually, before we end up is, are there particular topics you've heard here, say it now or later, that you'd like us to dive deeper into? What we would do is kind of present deeper into the projects we've talked about today. But if there are any particular projects or program areas you'd like us to dive into, please do that.
I would suggest in the interest of time that we send Ann a list.
Right, I agree. Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. But we'll definitely pursue that in some appropriate way. Yeah, but thank you so much. Well, that sort of ends the general presentations, and now we are ready to talk about the climate smart outreach and advocacy strategy.
We should allow for public comment.
I'm so sorry.
Just in case anybody wants to.
Oh, yes,
That
thank
is
you.
in the room.
Is there any public comment or questions
And that would be on the last 3 presentations.
for all the presentations? Thank you, Ann. All right, I guess we can move on. Thank you. All right, to the climate smart outreach and advocacy strategy, and who is
I
who's
can
working
speak on that. It's not really a formal presentation. So in the materials that we provided, there is a climate smart San Jose outreach plan. So this is for ESD specifically. Thank you so much. So we sort of drafted a plan. This is reminiscent, not an exact copy of our internal document that we're creating for the next fiscal year that is outlining a little bit of the background, some of our goals, our target audiences, and some of the methods that we use. For all of you, we did provide some examples of past outreach that we have done, so little pictures of some of the tactics that we've used. But I think the ultimate goal of this is going to be focused on the last couple of pages. We have drafted up some of the strategies that we anticipate using in the next fiscal year, but we are still in the planning process of this. So we wanted to bring it to you and ask for feedback on, what the initiatives that we are doing. Do you think they're good and useful initiatives? Should we continue with those? We haven't fully budgeted our entire budget for the next year. So the bottom line, our total is $56,500. We haven't fully allocated. Officially, none of it has been officially earmarked for anything. So we're still in the planning stages. But we do have some general ideas and tactics based on what we've done in previous years, continuing on, and some goals for the next year. So there's two different charts. The top one is budget allocation by project. And then the bottom one is budget allocation by tactic. So we're looking for feedback and input on what you think, if there's things that we should do more of, things we should do less of, something new that we haven't tried before.
Could you maybe do us all a favor and sort of walk us through this, the chart, sort of one by one a little bit, so we can start all stay in alignment?
So, okay, so right now we're in the planning stages for the next fiscal year. It's important that we figure out what the tactics and some of the programs that we're going to be doing the majority of our outreach are, because we need to get contracts in place if there are companies that we need to contract with for some of the work that we're doing. So that's why we're talking about this now. It doesn't mean that the only outreach that we do for the next year is listed here. There are other things that we can do utilizing like social media and other things like that that are a little more impromptu as the year goes on. But this is sort of planning purposes, like the big things that we want to accomplish in the next year. So this first chart is allocation by project. So you'll see here our annual Climate Smart Survey, Climate Smart Champion Awards, Building Electrification Webinars, Electric Homes San Jose, Climate Smart Challenge and Go Green Teams, Zero Emissions Neighborhood Pilot, and then this is sort of our catch-all for everything else that is not included under these specific projects.
So for these, are you able to tell us just sort of high level of the things we see in this chart, the different programs, which is the most effective for the budget? I'm sure you run metrics on.
Yeah, so we have different metrics that we use to evaluate success of this. I think the number one tactic that our communications department uses is impressions, but that's sort of up to you what the meaning behind that is. So by and large, social media, things like that, targeted ads, that when people are using social media, Facebook ads, boosted ads, tend to get the most impressions. And they also tend to be cheaper than some of the alternatives. So that's why you'll see social media and just, computer-based tactics that are, pretty much in everything. But we do try to do a mix of other things. Actually, I don't think we have it on here, but we have flyers and postcards. There we go. Laundromat ads is another strategy that we do. So these have been based on previous efforts that that Climate Smart has done, as well as other groups under the Environmental Services Department and the citywide communications groups, teams as well, and that we have found to be effective. So we do try to list out when we're planning. So every time we do a project, we create an outreach plan. And it's very detailed. It talks about what are the goals, who's our audience, and then we sort of talk through with our communications team, what are the effective strategies for this? And so like when we're targeting specific communities and things like that for the outreach that we're doing, we try to tailor our tactics to the people that we're trying to reach with what we're doing. So I think that this talks a little bit about the tactics, but if we scroll down to the next chart, it's divvied up by tactic, and the dollar amounts that we spend
So
on
what's the
each
difference
tactic.
between building electrification and electric homes?
So Electric Homes is a specific program that we have that actually just launched, that we're doing outreach for. And so that is like an incentives-based concierge service that we're doing, and that's the name of the program that we're doing. But then there's a broader just electrification, that's other messaging that's, hey, do get a heat pump water heater or something like that. That's a little more general.
Do any of these include incentives for these purchases?
Yes, there is incentives for Electric Home San Jose. We actually I think they just earmarked basically all the funding for the incentives in that program, but yes, they do. We also partner, some of these are not just in ESD. Sometimes we do partner with other divisions like energy, and they do a bit more incentive work than Climate Smart specifically does, but we do offer incentives.
What is the Zen pilot? I've never heard of that one.
So the Zen pilot is a focused effort in the Santee neighborhood of San Jose, to basically attempt to electrify, make it a zero emissions neighborhood. So we're trying a bunch of different tactics, community building, electrification incentives, things like that in the community, even like microtransit, Department of Transportation is working in there as well. Electrification of commercial fleet and things like that. So the goal is to make it a zero emissions neighborhood. It's our pilot program, see what works, see what doesn't work. It is one of our focus neighborhoods because there is a larger Spanish speaking and Vietnamese speaking population in the area. So it was useful for trying tactics and seeing what works and learning from it.
Within the Electric Home San Jose program, is there an effort to send postcard mailers specifically to the census tracts that are disadvantaged and eligible for the most rebates from the program?
So actually, the Electric Home San Jose was launched sort of in unison, well, not in unison with Zen, but we did do postcard mailers specifically to the Santee neighborhood in an effort to electrify multifamily buildings in that area. So they were actually some of the initial people that received some of the incentives that we offered in there.
Zen program in Santee neighborhood, is there already sort of a notion that you might eventually shut down gas, or that's sort of pushed out too far?
We haven't talked about that yet. Wouldn't that be a great goal, I think? But yeah, no, that hasn't been part of the discussions at this point.
Please correct me if I'm way off going in the wrong direction. It just seems like this is a subset of environmental service project or climate smart projects, not the full set. And I think you did mention it, this wasn't all of them, but this seems very much like it's focused, what we're seeing here is focused on promotion and communication, as opposed to some of the other more, really programs focused really on reducing emissions.
Yeah, this is our outreach plan.
This is just outreach.
Just outreach and
Okay, you're
engagement
right.
with the community.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did I miss something?
Sorry. So as person of color and first generation, and thinking about my family and my husband's family grew up in Vietnam, I don't see any of the places that they would usually go to, like the grocery store, the hospital, restaurants. Like they don't really do social media, and they probably would have struggle reading a card.
I'm not
sure they read Chinese because they're Chinese born in Vietnam, but yeah, just wondering, like, since you guys have done this for a while, like, have those proven to be not effective ways of outreach, or like going to schools to have children bring stuff home, or for San Jose State, students are actively involved?
Yeah, so great question. We have been looking into different tactics to, particularly for Vietnamese speaking communities. We recently just did an electrification webinar that was offered fully in Vietnamese, and we partnered with Project Hope, which is part of, it's like a nonprofit that's underneath our Parks and Recreation Department. And they have done a lot of community engagement, and they actually provided us with a whole lot of input on the tactics that we're doing. They actually encouraged us to go door to door, knocking in the neighborhood. They encouraged us to post flyers at like Vietnamese markets and things like that. So that is some of what we're trying, and we actually had a really great successful first webinar. This was the first time we actually offered a viewing party for the webinar. That was something they encouraged us to do as well. So we weren't sure how well it was going to work. I think we ended up with 45 participants plus like 20 or so kids that were attending it. So for the first time trying it, we thought it was successful. But yes, that is definitely something that we are learning and trying to do more of, and speaking more directly to some of these community-based organizations and getting their feedback on like what is effective in these communities. So that's definitely something that we are learning and growing in.
Okay, I'm going along the same
Yeah.
line that Tracy just did, is that, that you're doing community outreach. You actually send teams of people to various community organizations or groups? Because I would love to go.
Yeah, so actually, this is a great transition to the next document. This it's actually quite a hefty list. So this is our community relationship management system that we have it broken down by category. So if you flip through, you'll see that at first is businesses, we have CBOs, nonprofits, and advocacy. You can go a little bit further, community centers, et cetera. So what we were hoping with this list was not tonight necessarily, but you know, when you have some time to look through, are there things that are missing from this? This is who we do outreach to. This is who we contact and engage when we're putting on programs and figuring out who are, you know, the good partners when we're working on a certain program in a certain area or in a certain community.
But I'm number 600 on the group on that list.
No. Okay.
So can we, is there a contact person that, you know, any group could call and say, hey, we'd like to have you come out and give a presentation? to our
Yeah.
Community group.
If you actually go onto the Climate Smart page, there is a link, and I can send that to everyone as well, but there is a link on the Climate Smart page to request that someone from the Climate Smart team come out and do a presentation. So yeah, that's something that we do. Our communications team monitors that and sort of figures out what exactly they want us to present on and finds the appropriate person to come up and speak.
Representing District 10, the HOA in our area is not on here.
Okay.
It's ranchosantateresa.org.
Ranchosantateresa. Yeah.
And also along those lines for presentations, the San Jose Clean Energy also has an email at the bottom of our webpage. So if you also want to send an email to that, we will also do the same thing in terms of doing outreach. And we've presented at like neighborhood associations and different things along those lines.
Could you just see that? Was that action you suggest?
For San Jose Clean Energy, if you go to our website at the bottom, we have an email and you can reach out to that email. And if you have a community in mind, or if you want to send it to neighborhood association, and we'd be happy to come out to do a presentation as well. It should just be info@sanjosecleanenergy.org. But yeah, if you reach out to that, we will then reach out to you about setting up a presentation.
And if you reach out to one or the other and you want both of us to come, we can always coordinate something.
Yeah, we've done quite a few joint presentations as well. We've gone to businesses before for their like Earth Day events, and we've done presentations at businesses as well. So yes, we work together.
Yes, that's for both environmental services and SJCE. It's sort of coming back to a question I was curious about before. In terms of the communication tools that you're using, and maybe overlaid with the kind of community groups that you know are a long list of, are there messages, you know, that seem to resonate with the communities? And I'm sure it depends on the community, but in general, are you having more success with some of the messages you're delivering to the community? And if so, what are those messages?
I think one of the big challenges with communications is figuring out and evaluating the effectiveness of it. You know, like I said, impressions is one of the big things that we offer, but impressions don't necessarily reflect whether or not people are implementing actions. Behavior change is just notoriously challenging. We do also measure some of our successes by things like incentives. Are we using the full dollar amount that we set aside for incentives? How quickly are those incentives going? For example, our electric home San Jose, we felt like it was very successful. We earmarked all of the money, and it was basically 1 month from when it was launched until it was basically all, tagged for someone to use. So we felt it was successful. That's something we'd like to do again. We'd like to, expand upon it in the future. So that's one of the ways that we determine effectiveness. But in the outreach plan, there is a section that talks about some of our messaging. But under the key messages, we have some climate smart general, some climate smart challenge, and carbon neutral by 2030. So these are, things we've worked on, taglines basically that we've worked on with our communications department to develop. We sort of rely on them for some guidance on like language and how to phrase things. And then these are obviously the English versions of these. We do work with translators when we are translating into a different language. So it's not always like a one-for-one translation. We do try to make it like culturally appropriate when we are translating it. But these are effectively what we're messaging.
And it looks like some of the messages are awareness building.
Yes.
And others are more around taking action.
Yes. It depends on what the program is. So some of it's just general, like, hey, do you know that Climate Smart exists? Like when we do our survey, that's one of the evaluators is, do people even know that Climate Smart is a program and what we do? Just the general awareness of it. But then there's other things that we do where we want people to engage and actually take action, like Go Green Teams, where we want people to join and, to go through the program and learn about electrification and other climate smart initiatives. Yeah. So I guess the ask for this, we do have to have this plan finalized by July 1, but it will be going for review prior to that. So ideally, if anybody has feedback, particularly on the outreach plan and where we are promoting and the tactics that we're using, the sooner the better, ideally before early June for feedback, and you can send that directly to me, and we can consider and talk with our communications team and evaluate things like that. For the greater list for the CRM, that we don't really have a deadline. We're always open to adding people to this. This is sort of like the people who we outreach to and work to. So anytime, just keep this in the back of your mind and feel free to reach out with it.
So with that in mind, that you'd like us to, take a little time to evaluate this. And do you want us, is there anything to really approve at this point?
I don't think so. It's not a finalized plan at this point, so I don't think it really needs to be finalized or approved at this point. It's just open to feedback.
It's whatever you would like to do. I just want to make sure that we're handling this.
No, I mean, I
in a way
think
that
it's,
works for you.
I think it's okay to just provide us with feedback as we go. I mean, if you have anything here today, that would be great. But this is really just for like internal use. It's really just working on programs and things policies that we already have in place and just how to promote them to the community better. So
I guess the one feedback I have gets back to, how you're measuring success. And I know that's difficult with communications, but I'm just hoping that maybe there is a way to expand on the work for evaluation so that you can do a better job of potentially targeting your messages to achieve some outcomes that you care about beyond awareness building.
And we do have a performance metrics section in here.
Okay.
So that may help illustrate what we currently are using, but I think this entire document is open to feedback. So if there's things that you feel like we can incorporate to better evaluate, we are definitely open to suggestions.
Okay, and great. Great. Is there if I wanted to dive down a little deeper into some of these metrics, and would I talk to you, or are you working on that, or and then also, for SJCE, could I just have a connection to the right people, and it might be you, Anne,
I mean, I think I would probably be the best first step for anything, and I could link
Okay.
up with our communications group.
Yeah, I would say Anne's always your first point of contact, and if it's anything SJCE related, she'll send it over to us. Maybe she'll probably send it to Leticia, who will then pass it throughout our.
Okay.
But yeah, this is specifically just climate smart.
Yes,
This-
just ESP climate.
Yeah, yeah, just ESB climate smart. I
Right.
was just providing it from being a communications person. and
Yes.
I used to be on the climate smart team, so I have some experience with it, but.
So some of our programs obviously reach beyond just environmental services, but each department is doing their own outreach on their specific program.
That's great. Well, thanks, and that's what I'll do. Thank you. So I guess, are there any other questions from the commissioners?
It's, there's a lot of meat and initiatives.
Yes.
Document.
Mm-hmm.
I have one question, maybe. Can you give any visibility to the discussion on having this super off-peak rate plan for EV charging?
So it's still in development, so it's gonna be part of kind of our joint launch of our new rates and the programs roadmap when we go to council in August. So we'll have more information by then, but the goal is to actually just start off by piloting it to see if it's actually effective.
What I'm kind of getting, I'm asking curious, as I saw that it's a pilot movie. Is that like a 1 penny, 2 penny, 3 penny rate drop?
I don't think that we've determined yet what it's gonna be, because it's always gonna be in comparison to like the cost of service model. It's, I think, yeah, I think that one of the attachments had had something from programs that was part of our public transportation, electrification.
Yeah, this is, the recommendations, B on the memorandum. It would be a half a cent per kilowatt hour but it's for public transportation accounts, not for electric cars. I think it's
Oh,
for
yeah, that was-
electrification of public transportation,
He's looking
not
at a
electrification
different,
of private vehicles.
he's looking at a different
And
document.
that's why I understood it.
No, he's talking about a different,
Oh, sorry.
a different thing that we're working
Oh, I
on.
apologize.
Yeah, something that hasn't actually come forward yet, because it's still under development.
I'm sorry about that. I misunderstood. My apologies.
Well, it's,
okay.
yeah, this is residential.
Okay, that's still under,
Yeah, it's still under development.
Well, that's a good point of clarification. Thanks. Just along those lines, because I know we've got a lot of documents floating around here. Is there, please, let's take our time. Is there any document that you want of all that we've gone through just now that you'd like more clarity about?
Actually, I got
I know.
On number one in the initiatives, the infrastructure project. Is that
So that one is that part of the energy program roadmap, so there's gonna be a separate presentation.
I'm not sure.
It's actually gonna, I'll do a separate.
Okay, actually, only question, maybe someone knows, is this 14 million, is this San Jose?
Why you speak a little louder for everybody to hear?
Actually.
Do you know where he's at?
I'm saying for the state, but it's not.
It's not
Glenn,
just
do you want
that.
to point out where you're at?
Oh, item one on the initiatives, there you go. on the
Yeah.
screen.
There we go, thank you.
That's not 14 million for the whole state,
No,
14%.
no, that's what was allocated, yeah,
That's,
for the city of San Jose, so that's the combination of department funds and program funds.
thank you.
So I think where we're at, any other comments or questions and from the public, any questions?
I was just wondering for the climate smart goals, is there an intention to include food? Like more locally grown food and minimizing food waste, vegetable forward diets, that kind of thing?
So currently, in terms of food waste, we are developing our zero waste element, which will be talking more about carbon reductions and greenhouse gas reductions from waste consumption, things like that. We do, we are managed under SB 1383, so there already is a lot of organics diversion work happening in integrated waste management. But the integrated waste management team we do have them on the work plan for, I think, September to come and present more on the zero waste element. So they would be able to speak a little bit more about some of the specific work that they're doing. But I guess in terms of like locally grown produce and things like that, I'm not, I know that we speak to some of that in the climate smart plan. It's not one of our main focuses, as we talked about with the pathway to carbon neutrality by 2030. We're more focused on electric vehicles and lowering VMT. So, for example, in the Zen neighborhood, we are working to pilot an electric local fleet. So like smaller fleet vehicles, instead of huge semi trucks coming, they would be like smaller electric vehicles that would be delivering produce. Where that produce comes from, I'm not certain, but I think the goal would be to have it traveling a shorter distance as part of the reduction in VMT as well. Yeah.
Following up on your question, there's no plan to have it, right now, food goes with the garbage. I mean, kitchen food for the most part goes in the garbage. And that's separated out. There's no plan to have any kind of sophisticated or a separate diversion for food at this point.
So that would be a question for integrated waste management. The last I heard was that they are keeping it back end for residential. We do have our wet dry system for commercial, which does have a specific organic spin. But yes, I think the longer term goal would be an integrated waste management question. So they could speak more to that when they come.
Well, with that, then I think we don't need a motion to approve, so let's move on quickly to the commission work plan. This is the commission work plan for fiscal year 23-24 and fiscal year 24-25.
And this would be voting to finalize this work plan, which after it's finalized, we would be setting a date to present this to Transportation and Environment Committee for final approval, which means it's not that this can't be changed in the future, but if we are to, we can add small agenda items at later dates, but large discussion topics we would like to have reflected in the work plan, and that would need to go to Transportation and Environment. So not set in stone, but it isn't necessarily the easiest and quickest process to get the work plan amended at a later date. So ideally, we'd like to have this pretty much set at this point, if possible.
So if you all have, I don't know if we need to go through this, if you've all had a chance to review it, we are, if we don't need to go through it, happy to do that if you want to. But if we don't need to, then I suggest we have a motion to approve.
Can we write out what PBCE is?
Yeah.
Planning, building, code enforcement.
Yeah, maybe so then like if somebody from the public
Sure.
reads it, then they know what it is, because I actually had forgotten.
Right. We can always have discussion once we have a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay, no worries. Shall we move to that and then we can have a discussion?
Sure.
Is there a motion to approve?
Well, I think the discussion would happen before
Discussion
we.
first.
You want discussion first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the discussion could change someone's.
So I'm assuming, the planning board code enforcement item was, they would address some of the questions that we.
Yeah, so this update from PPCE would be that September item. Yes, and I did send the questions along and I am still figuring out the contacts, but I have a contact, but it is not the person that would speak to those, but they are. So, yes,
Great.
I will do.
Okay.
So how does this, how does this work plan coordinate with your presenting stuff to council?
Yeah, so when this commission was initially brought to council, we had drafted a work plan based on 4 meetings a year. Council directed us to move to 6. So we sort of amended the plan that we had there, and the goal was to incorporate the items that we are bringing to council, bring them here before they go to council.
How much before?
It depends, but usually, I mean, because we meet every other month, it's gonna vary with how much time we have. But the goal was to be able to incorporate changes from the commission before it goes to council. So, you know,
So,
it'll probably be at least a month.
so if we're gonna receive a briefing on, let's say, climate smart programs and policies on July 18th. So we need to have the materials so that we can review that and make changes so that we can, if we want amendments to what you're gonna present. So you're gonna provide us prior to the July 18th meeting, what you plan on sending to the council.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And so that we can then make changes to that on that date and after that date.
Yep.
Make those.
That's exactly. Yeah. So the process with the city is that we do start these several months in advance. Just the process of getting them through and agendized, it takes a long time.
Right.
So yes, we should basically have what we feel is a fairly finalized document that we will be bringing to you for input, but with the possibility to make, you know,
Right.
last minute edits.
Right. And then,
Hopefully it's not major edits, but
right. And San Jose Clean Energy and building plant, those guys are operating at the same.
Yep. Yes, yeah, so this has been, we did send this work plan around to all of the departments to make sure that they had buy-in for when they would be presenting here. So they have all, you know,
Okay.
signed off and said that this works for them.
Okay.
Tracy, sorry.
Actually, you raised your hand before I did.
No, go, please.
Yeah, we arrange smaller people at this point. There we go.
I'm curious if water is anywhere in here, like maybe when they do the transportation one, they'll talk about, because they talk about like green infrastructure, that let's do rainwater collection, whatever, but is there any other place that water might be talked about here?
So water is not one of our major focus areas for Climate Smart. So we really are focused mostly on electrifying, you know, clean energy, electrifying buildings, electrifying vehicles, and reducing vehicle miles traveled. So that's really the focus of what this is. The Climate Smart Plan does speak to water, but that's not really what the four co-leads are not really focusing on that right now. But we do have, you know, a green infrastructure team in our watershed group. And they are doing things, and there may be items that come up that are very relevant to the work that we're doing, and then they would be brought to the commission. But it's not incorporated into this work plan because we don't really have anything super relevant to the work. I mean, there are policies that, you know, regulate the amount of green infrastructure that goes in, like based on the amount of paving that's done on construction projects. But that's just an ongoing thing, and it's not really directly related to the major climate smart initiative.
So it's more like, yes, food and water and are related, but they're not what's gonna reduce emissions.
Yes, right now we're focused on that big 85% piece of the pie, but we're not gonna get to carbon neutrality with just that. So those other things are important, but they're just not a major focus.
I request for semi-annual updates on the status of the plan. I'd love to see something on the work plan to that effect, that in November. Now, I noticed that you have some updates there.
So we do have like the updated climate smart plan is what we're working on right now. So that's gonna be, we have that coming here around July. And then there's also, there should be somewhere on here,
Yes,
the
a couple other
Climate
things.
Smart semi-annual update, so that will be coming here as well.
Yeah, transportation has it. And then are those going to include, I guess, updates to the 2030 plan? I mean, you know, when you say updates, and I guess what I'm thinking of is, where are we, you know, relative to the plan? I mean, are we on track? Are we behind? Are we ahead? If that's included in those updates that you're listed there, then great, then I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I should say that part of the update to our climate smart plan that we're working on right now is enhancing the model that we use to make it more of a calculator that other departments can use. So when they are putting together initiatives and programs, there would be a way to plug in certain things and say, this is the amount of greenhouse gas reductions that we anticipate if we can install this many heat pump HVACs within the community. So that is something that we feel is important to message to council when we're presenting them with things that we'd like, funding for. But we also want to be able to make that publicly accessible to the community that, when we developed this program, it was because we feel that this is the greenhouse gas reductions we could expect from doing these types of programs. So I don't know that, I think what you're asking for is more concrete numbers of like what we're doing with
Or
each thing.
dates, anticipated, completion dates, so that we can look as a group and say, okay, yeah, looks good, we're on schedule, or it's back, and here's some suggestions we have. But I think we have to check in as a commission. And I'm saying, every other, semi-annual, where do we stand? And what do we need to do if we're behind, or, pat ourselves on the head or whatever, bet you on the head for a second.
So I do think like the update to the climate smart plan is meant to bring us up to date with the work that we've done and sort of evaluate where are we on that chart that we're
But
looking
I'm
at.
looking at more than just where what we've done to date. I'm looking at where do we
Yes.
stand relative to 2030.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's part of, I think, the longer term, like the plan updates, and that plan is meant to be updated on a regular basis, approximately every 4 years when the general plan is also updated. And I think that's really when we can evaluate where we are along the line. I think on a more granular level, like every 6 months, I just don't think we have the data. Already there's a lag in the data, so the most recent greenhouse gas inventory we did was from 2021. We're working on one now from 2022. But a lot of the data we have to get from other organizations like PG&E, and that's only available on an annual basis. So we can't really provide updates to that on a more frequent scale. But we can talk about the specific programs that we're doing and where we are. Why did we choose this program? Why do we feel like it will be effective? And where are we at in that program? And that's what these updates would speak more to.
And, just to let anyone know, I think we have to be in our cars and out the parking garage by 9:30.
Yes.
So it is a little after 9, so we should probably try to expedite.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Thank you.
Hold on,
I just want to make a suggestion, if there's anybody who hasn't seen like a past somewhat annual climate smart update, maybe if you could send one to all the commissioners, because that way when, because the one for July 18th, it might just come like a week or 10 days before.
Yeah.
And then that way you'd have like a couple months to look at the previous one and.
Yeah, we just have an update to transportation and environment, so I can definitely send that out to everyone so you get an idea of what we're each of those.
So we do have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any other further discussion? No, then, those in favor of accepting the work plan, please raise your hand. Did you have a comment, Victor?
I don't understand the work plan. I really like Bill's idea. I really feel like I'd like to see some structure. It doesn't look to me like that's in the plan. And so on that basis, this, I mean, this is what we're trying to do. We're talking about tons. Every program should have some impact on tons, either directly or indirectly. I mean, for me to be supportive of it. In the absence of any vision, it's really hard for me to say anything about anything. And I think Bill's point about having an update is sort of speaks to the heart of having some kind of vision or some structure of how we're getting there. And, this becomes sort of a process that takes off on its own once we say yes. And, oh, well, it's not in the plan. So meanwhile, we're sort of talking about programs where we don't know how many tons are associated with them, and we don't know where they fit into the overall vision of where we're trying to get by 2030. So without that, I feel really lost.
Well,
I don't mind if people are happy. I'll just, that's where I am. And that's why I vote no for approving this work plan, even though I want to get out of here.
Well, I have a thought about that. Because we have in this room some people who have very sophisticated understanding of how to model, how to use statistics, how to model. So I'm wondering that, I'm wondering if, that we need to, that this goes beyond the approval of the work plan and actually gets to the heart of a deeper issue. And if that should not possibly be an ad hoc committee, which I don't think we'll have time to talk about tonight, but an ad hoc committee of those who want to really focus on this, to come up with some specific recommendations, not just independently, one, where, but rather as a committee, join together and do a report and then recommendations, and even have the chance to talk to some of the people who are focused on developing and, taking, soft data and turning it into something harder. Does that, anyway, that's just a thought I have as the way to continue forward, but you understand, Victor, what I mean?
I understand the question in talking amongst ourselves here, but there's lots of stuff in Climate Smart that people would need to understand in order to have any sort of meaningful interaction, and we haven't really had you all as staff are really, really busy. I don't know, and so don't want to impose on you, but yet I don't sort of
So
have
we
this
do,
vision.
we do a greenhouse gas inventory. Previously it was every other year. We're starting to do that annually now. So that is something that we just started, but again, this relies on data from a lot of different sources that takes time to aggregate. And so we do anticipate having our greenhouse gas inventory from 2022 by the fall of this
The
year.
inventory, though, is a data collection of where we are.
Yes.
Programs,
Mhm.
for example, I have an electric car.
Mhm.
I was curious, well, how many tons did that accomplish? And so I did the math of how many, if I drove my Tesla instead of a Camry, which are close substitutes, I think that's worth 2 tons a year. I mean, that's what I mean by sort of understanding what we're mapping to actually doing something that is pushing us along.
And I guess I'll add,
The path, and it seems like, I don't need to know how many people have electric cars to know how many, if I substitute a Tesla for a Camry or for an F-150, how many tons, were accomplished, and having that kind of structure is sort of, to me, kind of critical to deciding where you get bang for the buck, where you're howling at the moon, where even if you success, you haven't gotten anything. I mean, and that's what
So in the Clean
I
Energy
think we're all
Commission,
really in agreement.
the Clean Energy Commission, we had programs and we assigned a certain tonnage of CO2 emission to each of those programs. Is that what you're looking for?
that was, Ruth. help me.
that's the
When
goal
we
of
get,
the
when we
campaign
get the updated climate smart plan, would that be an appropriate place for
If-
us to put the
if-
comment in?
If
Your
it
comment.
had that,
But you'd have to see it.
yeah, we
first.
have to see it.
Yeah, but can't we wait till we see it and then we could, if it's not there, then you could comment that it should be there.
Okay,
All right.
that's fair, that's fair. If the plan shows the path and shows
I think
with structure to it, that's what I need to vote for, and we all
Well,
get
we
to make
can,
that
we can
choice.
comment though.
Here's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Is there, I understand you can't do, you're 2 years behind in doing a full inventory. But you have some partial data like EV registrations.
Yeah.
Per quarter, per year, we can get much more than 2 years, much better data. And maybe natural
Yes, so
gas.
this is all
PG&E,
part of the
natural-
climate smart plan update that we're working on. And
But earlier than 2
like
years.
I said, the model that we're doing is, so there's one side of the model where we're plugging in all of the goals that are described in Climate Smart, where we're modeling out how we're going to reach the goal by 2030 and what what the very high level initiatives such as building electrification are going to be to help us reach that goal. So part of that is updating the model that informs those high level programs that we're going to be doing. Underneath that, we are going to have work plans that are the specific programs that we're doing, and that's updated on an annual basis. Currently, we do not really have a good way. Departments are measuring, they have metrics that they are using, but it's not consistently, this is the greenhouse gas reductions that we're going to see. That is also part of the update to the model. We're developing a calculator that other departments will use to plug in programs and say, for example, we're developing this program where we're gonna incentivize installation of heat pump HVACs. And if we can install this many, this is the amount of greenhouse gas reductions that we anticipate seeing from this program.
Is that the model you were thinking, going to the council to get money for?
This is all part of the Climate Smart Plan update
It's,
that we are working
you
on.
have those tools in your reach now.
We are working on it right now, yeah. So the model we've had, we are updating the model. The calculator is new. That we are working on right now. We're developing, we're
Okay.
working with.
I'll go with Ruth here. Let's move on. Let's see what we see on the Climate Smart Plan then. I hope we see some structure with some path, and I hope that we can then start looking at updates from that, and I will vote for it. So now
Thank you.
I changed my vote. That was 10 minutes, but I think I hope it
That's
materially
fine.
affects what we see next time, because this is a lot of time and effort for us, and I really want to hope that it's helping somewhere. And it's gotta have. some
Well,
purpose.
and I really don't want the clock to be the enemy of good decisions. So is it possible, and no one here but me might care about doing this, but is it possible to somehow carry this discussion further, should anyone want to do that beyond? Because I'm worried that if we wait until the update draft, it's too late.
The updated draft for the next meeting.
Is next Monday?
The next meeting,
Next meeting,
July.
well, it's, yeah. Okay, well, I guess we should probably,
I think.
I won't continue to
The
pursue
work
with
plan
this.
has its items. That's what we'll see next meeting.
Yeah,
They've heard sort of some of our reactions and thoughts.
right,
This is all new.
right,
You know, I've spoken up a lot because I've been involved a lot and I'm a
right.
numbers guy. With time, I think that people who come in will get their voices and sometimes please.
Well, there is a motion on the table and I think a second.
I think we vote.
And so.
When we
we have
voted,
a-
I changed my
a-
vote so it's unanimous.
Vote on the approval of the work plan. Motion approved, all 10 in favor. Because I think we still have yet a couple more things we need to at least get through or push off to the next meeting. So we have the annual report.
This is a draft, so this, at the next meeting would be presented as final for vote.
It's for last year.
This is just for last year, so
So
it's
it doesn't
basically
matter.
2 meetings. Basically just says that we've updated you all on.
So we don't need to approve this.
Right.
We'll do it next time. It
Yeah.
won't take any time.
But read
Well, we
through
still
it,
have
and if you
more to
have
go.
comments on anything that's on there, you know, we can edit it, but yes, it would be voted on, that's fine.
Okay, so we can just,
You gave that to us then.
That is one of the
It's
attachments,
it's
yeah.
a table that looks like that.
Okay.
It says we met in March, we met in
Yeah.
May.
Oh, okay.
so we really don't need to take any action.
Yeah.
Not at this meeting,
So
no.
we gotta make sure we read it before the next meeting.
So
Yeah, and I'm sure we can find ways.
Let's move on to something that, Ann, you're gonna have to clarify.
Mhm.
The recommendation of city council for set time for climate smart items.
And this was, Monty brought this up at the last meeting.
So, for instance, the youth, any items involving the youth commission on the San Jose City Council are held until 4 p.m. so that students who are attending school are able to comment on this after school hours. And I would suggest that any items related to the Environmental Services Department and the climate smart goals would have the same timing requirement given the particular interest to young people as shown by the inclusion of a youth representative for the student commission. So that is my suggestion.
So I think if you want to make a recommendation to the city council, you need to kind of write that out.
Right.
And that we can read it and vote on it and then send it to the city council. I think that's the process that has to be gone through.
So for I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Oh, please.
Okay, so for like I know that lots of times, I'm sure you have attended the city council meetings, most of them run late. But if they finish early, do they have to just take a break and come back at 4 for the youth commission items? Is that what they do? Because I know sometimes they're short. I don't know, how often are they before 4 o'clock?
Council meetings, when do they finish before 4?
Yeah, does that ever happen very often?
They're all over the place, but yeah, it's possible.
Sometimes they take like an hour, if it's a short agenda, sometimes they'll go until like 7, 8, 9 PM.
Yeah.
It really just
So that
depends.
would be the only thing, I guess, if they finish, could they do like, could they do like 4 o'clock or at the end of the meeting, whichever comes first or something like that?
Yes, I suppose that's what they would do now with the youth commission items. I've never seen the time when the youth commission items were heard after the end of the meeting coming back to
So, because the meetings are always longer than 4 o'clock.
what I've seen before.
Okay, I was just curious, because I mean, I know that.
And we can write a recommendation and, you know, it's for council to consider. So the way, or like, frankly, even if they implement it, it is to be voted on at council. But providing that recommendation is something that they could consider, and like, it could boil down to, they just end up falling later in the agenda, and then, you know, they just go through the items as they can. But I don't know, I think that's for council to decide. So I think drafting the recommendation would be. Steps. If you want to, if you can maybe send me an email, I can look and see if there's like an example recommendation that's been provided to council that I could give you.
Yeah. So should we take that up at the next meeting for approval, or, yeah, so you're gonna work on that and that'll be part of our next agenda.
Yeah.
I think, given the timing, we have one more, we have one more section on ad hoc committees, but I think we'll need to push that off till the next meeting. But what I'm gonna ask you all to do, if you wouldn't mind, is, this is actually coming from me, an idea from me. If, I'm gonna work with Ann and I'm gonna develop something much more complete so you can understand where I'm coming from, and if anyone has an idea for an ad hoc committee, is that all right if they can share that with me? Ann, is that okay? And then, or do we need to have them send it to you, and send it to everybody else? Okay, because I certainly will. I'll be more complete in my description of what I'm thinking as well. What I'm hoping for, just so that you know, is that, because I really think the development of ad hoc committees, and I don't want to go overboard on it, but some committees can be valuable to our impact. And I believe everybody in this room wants to have impact. I really believe we can achieve a little bit more by doing that. And so anyway, so we'll bring this up. But I think I have to, do I have to do some kind of a motion to defer? So is there a motion to defer the ad hoc committee, and I guess also the Manny's recommendations for the council? Second. Okay, there's a second by Bill. And and further discussion? And if not, would you please vote on the motion to defer? Okay. And that, it looks like that's a full yes for approval of the 10. So with that, I can say, so here, meeting adjourned. Oh, there are couple things, thank you, Tony, that I need to mention. Let's see if I can pull that off here. There it is, and my. If the meeting is next, the next meeting is July 18th, 2024 at 7.
Hold on, give me a second, Zach.
Okay.
What a screen.
Zach, you should be able to be unmuted now.
Oh.
Sorry, Karen, go finish what you were gonna do. I'll go later.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're getting ready to adjourn. Zach, did you want to make a comment? Oh, yep, muting. Did we lose him?
Hold on. There we go. Go ahead, Zach.
Yes, I was just gonna say, I'm sorry, it was just meant to be some good news here at the end. So San Jose Clean Energy has received an investment grade credit rating, an A2 from Moody's earlier this week, and so we're very excited about that. That's public. We're going to do a press release a little bit later, but that is out there for you to share, and we can distribute the report. But it's a lot of work, 5 years of work. But so just want to share the news.
Right.
Congratulations. Thank you, Zach. Is there anything else, Zach, that you want to share?
Good news only.
No, I think he's good. And so in addition to talking about the meeting, the next meeting, do any commissioners and staff have any suggested items for the July meeting other than the 2 items we talked about? Anything else that you want to put into the agenda? Then I guess I can do this gavel again, the meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, until he agrees.